When you're trying to build more muscle, it's sometimes the small things that don't often get discussed that can contribute to more muscle growth. When you go to the gym, you often see a lot of guys lifting the weights very, very fast, and you'll see very few guys lifting the weights very slow. 90% of the people who are lifting the weights really fast, it's not their strategy, it's just the fact that they're trying to compete against their friends, they're trying to make people look at them, because if you're lifting the weights very fast, obviously that means you can lift heavier weight, and really you can lift a weight that you can't handle, but it makes you look like you can lift more, which just leads to form breakdown. If your form starts to break down, it's simple, you're just not working the target muscle that you're trying to work. Also, don't be fooled by the other people you see lifting weights on YouTube who look massive, because a lot of these people are taking steroids, and what that means is when you're taking steroids, training for the pump, training fast with high reps is the way that you build the most muscle. Whereas when you're training naturally, the best way to build muscle is to actually break the muscle fibres down. And this doesn't mean your favourite YouTubers are taking steroids just because they're lifting the weights fast, but a lot of people out there are taking stuff and are not telling you that they're taking stuff. So your training is not going to be the same as somebody who's taking steroids. Hopefully most of you understand this, but what I would say before I get into whether we should lift the weights fast or slow is that the fundamentals are the most important thing. So making sure you have a solid nutrition plan, a solid training plan with good form, making sure you're sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night, making sure you're eating enough, making sure you're getting enough protein in. All of the fundamental things are important and more important before you start thinking about how fast or slow you're lifting the weights. Also, me showing you the best way to lift the weights is with the goal of hypertrophy, so to build muscle. If you're strength training, this is not the best tempo to lift the weights at. If you are interested in learning how to build more muscle, like just in videos like this, or lose more body fat is another topic I talk about, then subscribe to this YouTube channel and just click that little bell. Having that said, let's compare the two lifting tempos. So I'm going to list some benefits out to each and then really come up with a solution at the end. When you lift the weight slowly, that means that you're tearing more muscle fibres down. So the idea is that you tear the muscle fibres down by lifting slowly, and then with the correct amount of protein and sleep and recovery, those muscle fibres grow back bigger and stronger, and that's how we build muscle. Obviously, if you're lifting the weights fast, you can't do that because you're not breaking the fibres down. By lifting the weight slow, you put the muscle under load for a longer period of time. This means that's the more time under tension that you get. So that muscle is under tension for a longer period of time. You're putting that muscle under more stress, you're making it work harder, meaning that's going to cause more growth. I would say that time under tension is a largely talked about thing, and it's not quite as important for muscle growth as most people in the industry think it is. However, it is still a factor in growth. When you're lifting the weight slower, this means that you're going to be usually using better form. If you're using better form, that means that you're actually working the muscle that you're trying to work. Whereas when you're lifting fast, a lot of the times we're not working the correct muscle. Lifting slower also allows for a better mind-muscle connection, which is linked to better form, so you can feel that muscle contracting much more than you can if you're just pumping through the reps. By lifting the weight slowly, you're also going to be fatiguing the muscle more, which obviously the more we fatigue the muscle, the more growth you get. We also know that getting a pump does contribute to muscle growth, not the most important factor, but it does contribute to muscle growth, and by lifting the weight slowly, you cut a little bit of the circulation off to that muscle, which means more blood is going to stay in that muscle, meaning you'll get a better pump. When we think about having tension on the muscle, the way I want you to look at it is, if you just let the weight drop to the bottom, let's say we're doing a bicep curl, and you just let the weight drop, you're just taking all the tension out of the muscle. That's all that I mean by that. So obviously if you're lifting slowly, well, now you have tension on the muscle all the way down. When we lift the weight slowly, we're working those type 1 muscle fibres. The type 1 muscle fibres allow for growth, but the muscle growth from using the type 1 fibres typically is slower than if we're using the fast twitch muscle fibres, the type 2 muscle fibres, which is what we're using when we're lifting those weights fast. When you lift the weights fast, you're using the type 2 muscle fibres, which allow you to gain the most size. But then you have the trade-off of, okay, well now we have no tension on the muscle because we're lifting the weights too quickly. I'm going to talk a bit more about the benefits of lifting the weights fast, and then I'm going to tell you the perfect solution. Now, if you're lifting the weights fast, this means that you can get more reps in. If you're lifting the weights slow, you'll get fewer reps. If you're getting more reps, that also means you can use a heavier weight. So we'll be able to use heavier weights if we're lifting the weights quickly. So we have the benefit of heavier weight and also more reps. those two things will allow you to build more muscle. Those things will allow you to recruit more muscle fibres and get more activation to that working muscle. It also means you'd get a better pump as well, because if you're lifting the weights quickly, you're pumping more blood into the muscle. So I've listed some incredible benefits to both now. So what is the actual solution? Here's the solution. You do both. And here's how you can do both. Right, so on the eccentric part of the movement, that is the lowering of the weight. Let's take a bicep curl. That's when you're lifting the weight downwards, when you're lowering that weight. If we was talking about a bench press, the lowering of the weight is when you're bringing the bar to your chest. That's the eccentric part of the movement. On that part of the movement, this is where I recommend lifting the weight slowly. When you lift the weight slowly, we have all the added benefits that I just talked about. The time under tension, the correct form. Now, what most people will do is they have a fixed mindset. So they'll say, I do fast reps or I do slow reps. So they'll just stick to one all the time. This is where the genius part comes in. Now on the way back up, this is where we lift the weight fast. So you get all the benefits of the pump from lifting the weights fast, from the muscle fibre recruitment, all of the benefits from lifting the weights fast. That's why we lift it fast on the way up. So let's talk about that same bicep curl. On the way back up, you just lift up 1 second. And you can do this on every single exercise to get maximum benefits. So for example, again, on a bench press, let's do it right now. Let's count around 4 seconds. I recommend 3 to 4 seconds on the way down. It's been proven that anything above about 5 seconds is actually a lot worse for muscle growth. So going too slow, like really slow, especially when you start to get to that 10-second range, is really bad for muscle growth. But 3 to 4 is around perfect. So let's just say we're moving the weight down like this on a bench press. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on the way back up, I just count 1 second. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And it's exactly the same with the bicep curl. Now I'm in my car, so you might not be able to see as well. I apologise for that. But it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And that's exactly the best way that you can train. Another thing I recommend doing to switch it up, and this is just a tip for you people that are a little bit more advanced, people that have been training for around 3-4 years, if you just really want to change things up because you know how hard it is to build muscle at that stage, what I recommend doing is do 2 weeks of all slow repetitions on the way up and the way back down on the movements. Then do 2 weeks of really fast repetitions with good form. If you're choosing to do fast, it always has to be with good form. And then do 2 weeks of fast on the way up, slow on the way back down. Then at the end of that 6 weeks, change all the exercises up and do it again. So you're just incorporating different things in to help shock the body into new growth. But that's, again, only for people who are more advanced. If you've only been training a year, 2 years, even up to 3 years, don't do that. Do what I said. Lift the weights fast on the way up, slow on the way down.